Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to a silly little video. It's this time of year where most people are giving Criterion Collection recommendations and what Criterions you should buy in the Barnes & Noble sale. But we in the UK, unless you order from Barnes & Noble, but I don't think they actually ship internationally, we don't really take part in that. But every now and again, usually once a year, HMV in the UK, with their premium collection line, do a 2 for 15 Poundingtons. Because they're usually $14.99 each, and they're usually 2 for 25 for the rest of the year. And £12.50 is a bit much for the premium collection, because again, extras wise, it's kind of hit and miss. But 2 for £15, £7.50 is a pretty good. That's where their ballpark is for me, at least. There is a numbered collection, but again, it's one of those numbered collections that I've got no interest in having all of them just because they're numbered. Let's put an end to that rumour right now. But I just thought I would give 12 recommendations. It's one of those things where you kind of go, I don't have that many of them, and then you actually realise you've got quite a few of them. And I have made an order for the 2 for £15 ones, which, if you let me know in the comments when they come in the next few days, I might do a video saying which ones I've picked up. Again, I'm not big on pick up videos, but I might do it if people want to see which ones I've picked up. Again, these are just 12 recommendations. I could have pulled out a bunch more. Again, it's whatever floats your boat. And obviously what I think is a good film is not necessarily what you think is a good film, because again, my opinion is not fact. But again, I've just picked out 12 interesting titles for various reasons, which I'll get into, that for £7.50, I mean, what do you get nowadays for £7.50 apart from premium collection titles during the sale? So the first one is Outland from 1981, directed by Peter Hyam, starring Sean Connery. I mean, I should say the premium collection is pretty much all English language films, a lot of classics from the 30s, 40s and 50s, but some little gems, but generally mainstream-ish films. So Outland, if you're of a certain age, you will remember seeing this in VHS and not being able to see what the hell was going on. It was very dark. And then you would remember it being on television and not being able to see what was going on and it being very, very dark. But previously I had this on a German Blu-ray before this was released with the premium collection, and you can actually see what's going on. The Blu-ray print for Outland has really cleaned it up beautifully. You can actually see where the money was spent on the sets. This is High Noon in space, essentially. But in my opinion is not fact, it's better than High Noon. This is one of my favourite Sean Connery films outside of Zardos, well, including Zardos, and another film that I'll be mentioning shortly. Those three are probably my favourite Sean Connery films, because again, I'm not a huge Bond fan. I only have 2 Bond films in my collection. One of them is A View to a Kill, and that's for Christopher Walken, and the other one is Live and Let Die, and that's for Yaphet Kotto, not because they're Bond films. But Outland is so fantastic. Sean Connery playing a burnt out marshal. Peter Boyle's fantastic. There's a wonderful cameo by Stephen Berkoff. Francis Sternhagen is wonderful as one of few allies to Sean Connery. The Blu-ray, you can actually see what's going on and where the money was spent in the sets and the mining colony. There is a theory out there that Outland takes place in the same universe as Alien, but I don't think we've got any evidence for that. It's just a nice idea that there's a mining colony somewhere, and Sean Connery's a marshal in the same time as Ripley's going on bug hunts. Next is the Yakuza from 1974, because again you get the spine number and the year, if you can make that out. This is directed by Sidney Pollack. Robert Mitchum's fantastic. It's another one of the late great Robert Mitchum performances in the 70s, along with the Friends of Eddie Coyle and Farewell My Lovely, which I'll be mentioning later as well. This is Robert Mitchum in Japan causing problems. People die, people get into trouble. Takamura Ken's in this, Brian Keith, and it's all Robert Mitchum's fault. Robert Mitchum just screws up everybody's life in this film, not necessarily meaning to, but his decisions are pretty much bad for everybody involved, and it's just a wonderful film. Next is another 70s film that I did a video on a long time ago, but I'll bang the table for Time After Time because it's so nutty and barking. It's H.G. Wells and his time machine, played by Malcolm McDowell, and Jack the Ripper, played by David Warner, in the same time frame. And Jack the Ripper steals H.G. Wells' time machine, goes to San Francisco in 1979, and H.G. Wells follows him. Of course, I don't know who pitched this to the studios, but it sounds like a wonderful idea, and it is absolutely fantastic. Again, it's got cult written all over it. That's Cult, directed by Nicholas Meyer. Great support by Mary Steenburgen. This edition has got a feature-length commentary with Malcolm McDowell and Nicholas Meyer. Again, the premium collection, some of them have really good extras, some of them have like a trailer. It's a bit like Kino Lorber in that sense. But this is just such a blast. You know, it doesn't contain the meaning of life, but it's just so good if you're that way inclined. And I'm that way inclined. Next is an absolute gem that again I had on Spanish Blu-ray, and I was so happy when it actually got a better release. This is Nicholas Ray's On Dangerous Ground. It might be my favourite Nicholas Ray film, even though it is a bit butchered by the studios. Ida Lupino and Robert Ryan are absolutely fantastic. Because in the sale I did pick up another Robert Ryan film that I was waiting patiently for the 2 for 15 sale. This is just so good. Like I say, it's only 82 minutes because it was butchered and messed about with the studios. It's about a cop, played by Robert Ryan, who likes to get a bit too physical with witnesses and stool pigeons and criminals. And he is a very tightly wound spring. All his kind of colleagues have family lives and, wives and children, and they can switch on and switch off. Whereas Robert Ryan lives by himself and carries all the weight. And it's arguably Robert Ryan's finest performance. So he gets into trouble. He's kicked upstate, out of the city, until the heat blows over from one of his latest, using somebody as a punch bag. And he gets to investigate a murder up in the snowy countryside. And he comes across Ida Lupino, who's blind. And their relationship is actually probably more important than the whodunit that it turns into. It's just an absolutely beautiful film. It's one of the films I would highly recommend if you haven't seen. So you can, I mean, it's almost a masterpiece, even in its 82-minute version that's kind of cut. It's almost like the Magnificent Ambersons in the sense that even the cut down, butchered version is still pretty spectacular. And this is an essential Nicholas Ray, it's an essential Robert Ryan, and it's an essential premium collection, but obviously my opinion's not fact. Next, to go from a Nicholas Ray almost masterpiece to The Hidden, which is completely 80s cheese, science fiction horror with Kyle MacLachlan and Michael Nouri, Claudia Christian, but it's an absolute blast. There is a sequel which I've never actually seen. I'm not going to go into the plot because it's so wonderful, but people without criminal records are suddenly becoming very violent, going on crime sprees and then dying, and then other people with no criminal records are going on killing crime sprees. And Kyle MacLachlan is the FBI agent who is in town in LA to try and stop what's going on. It's one of those films, again, if you're a certain age in VHS, the trailer is one of the greatest trailers of all time, and probably led to a lot of rentals of The Hidden because of the trailer. And of course, the premium collection does have the trailer. It also has a commentary with Jack Shoulder and Tim Hunter, and the special effects production footage narrated by Jack Shoulder. So again, it's got some good extras. It's just complete 80s cheese, but it's just so well done. And in comparison to the sci-fi action cheese nonsense hokum films that are made now, The Hidden, is pretty much a Bergman film compared to what is produced nowadays. Next is Night Moves with Gene Hackman. Again, I'll hold my hand up and say I'm not the biggest Gene Hackman fan in the world, but he's really good in this, as a private detective, directed by Arthur Penn. It's just so good. Again, it's the 70s, it's 1975, so you can kind of tell what kind of film it will be. It's just really good. Again, I'm not going to go into plot. Again, I did a video on this a while ago as well. But if you actually want Gene Hackman dialed down a little bit, he's really good in this. Next is perhaps the underrated or less talked about John Frankenheimer film from that golden period with Seconds and The Manchurian Candidate. This is 7 Days in May. It's Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. What more do you want? About a military coup. Lancaster is just absolutely fantastic. This is probably his second best performance next to Sweet Smell of Success. And Kirk Douglas is wonderful too. Frederick March is fantastic as the president as well. It's just really good, really smart. It's lots of people talking in rooms, but Frankenheimer makes it absolutely riveting, which not everybody can do. Next, from 1976. These seem to all be from the 70s, apart from the ones that aren't. This is arguably my favourite Sean Connery film. Robin and Marion, Richard Lester, again, as I've said many times in this channel, this is a film that I saw when I was a lot younger and didn't really get it or didn't really like it. And now, as I'm older, I completely understand it, and it's an absolute masterpiece. One of the greatest casts ever assembled. I know Richard Lester did have a penchant for assembling wonderful casts, but this cast is ridiculous. Audrey Hepburn, Robert Shaw, Nicole Williamson, Denham Elliott, Ronnie Barker, for goodness sake, Ian Holm, Richard Harris. It's about an older Robin and Marion dealing with the myth, the weight of expectations, and it's just an absolute joy. It has one of the most realistic sword fight sequences between two older gentlemen. Robert Shaw's having an absolute blast. It's got a wonderful ending, obviously made in the 70s ending, and it's just sensational. Yeah, Sean Connery's just absolutely fantastic. The Ballad of Cable Hogue, Sam Peckinpah. Maybe he's most underrated, I don't know. Jason Robards is absolutely fantastic. As a guy who finds a bit of water in the middle of the desert. It's almost a comedy. It still has Strother Martin and L.Q. Jones, who we lost quite recently. Just wonderful. A light touch. Don't know how drunk Sam Peckinpah was when he made it, but I'm going to guess fairly. This is 1970, and it's just a little gem. Next, it's from the 70s again. This is Superfly, featuring one of the best scores of any blaxploitation film, and that's saying something because a lot of blaxploitation had fantastic scores. The score was done by the wonderful Curtis Mayfield, of course. Gordon Parks as Superfly. It might not be my favourite blaxploitation. That's probably Cotton Comes to Harlem or Willie Dynamite. But this one is pretty bleak and pretty brutal, even though you have that wonderful Curtis Mayfield score in the background. And again, it's good to see this on a decent Blu-ray release, because I think before it was on like a video on demand Blu-ray release from the States or something. I could be wrong. And this one does actually have a good bunch of extras on it. It's got One Last Deal, a retrospective documentary. It's got a commentary by Todd Boyd, USC professor of cinema and television, author of Am I Black Enough for You? Popular Culture from the Hood and Beyond. Curtis Mayfield on Superfly, which is an audio. Behind the Hog, which is about the car. And Ron O'Neill on the making of Superfly. It's really good to see it in a proper Blu-ray edition, and like I say, the extras are actually very good for that one. Coincidentally, it's another Peckinpah, and this might be my favourite Peckinpah. Randall Scott and Joel McRae and Ride High Country. Just a beautiful film, 1962. Only 94 minutes. It's a kind of tight economic Peckinpah film. Also, this is early, but it's just the relationship between the two men. It's one of the greatest films about male friendship, and it zings along, has good action, and a really moving ending, and it will give you feelings that you could argue not all of Peckinpah films do. Well, they give you other feelings, but proper feelings. And finally, Murder My Sweet, which is the 1945 version of Farewell My Lovely. I briefly mentioned Robert Mitchum in the 1975 version, which I have to say I prefer to this one. This is Dick Powell playing Philip Marlowe, but this one is a nice little film as well. Again, it really has that fatalistic kind of feel throughout. This one's got a commentary by Film Noir specialist Elaine Silver and the theatrical trailer. It's a really interesting double bill with Farewell My Lovely from 1975, Robert Mitchum, if you can find that. And this is a lovely little noir that for a lot of time, it was hard to get on Blu-ray, but this is a wonderful addition. I should say quite a lot of the premium collection are also available in Warner Archive Blu-ray, and a lot of the Warner Archive are region free as well. One of the other ones I would just mention, even though I don't have it and I won't be buying it, is Ernst Lubitsch Shop Round the Corner, because I have that on Warner Archive, but you can pick that up for 2 for $15, which obviously I would recommend as well. So I'm cheating by adding a 13th film to recommend, because it's one of Lubitsch's best. It's literally perfect with James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan. But I've got that in the Warner Archive Blu-ray, so I'm not going to double dip and pick up, even if it is just for $7.50. But the shop around the corner is absolutely perfect. But again, my opinion is not fact. So that's just 12 or 13 recommendations of films that you can now pick up for £7.50. And again, what do you get for £7.50 nowadays, apart from Blu-rays and the Premium Collection 2 for $15 sale? So thanks very much for watching. Again, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a little video on what I have purchased in the 2 for $15 sale, and hopefully you'll join me again for more videos. And thanks very much for putting up with this little bit of nonsense. So this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films saying farewell.